podcast because we have to build our own echo chamber that is about truth so that we can kind of fight some of the propaganda that's going on Fox News. TJ's channel, TikTok's in the link description. Shop Life Gang Store down there. Politics of Being Black Pod is down there. TJ will be up there. Here is a link to all the right-wing MAGA people that are in positions of power that have just got caught in one or another one, messing with, abusing, or recording themselves playing with children under the age of 5. Those that know me know I have 2 children under the age of 5, and one is a girl. Take a look at this scary shit. The ones who project usually are the ones doing.
Okay, here we have a Minnesota state trooper named Jeremy Francis Plonsky, and he has been arrested for producing a video of himself sexually abusing an infant. And I want you to notice that they tracked down his social media accounts, and he has posted a picture of the assassination attempt on Trump with the fight, proving that number one, he's MAGA. Number 2, he's probably knee deep in all of this QAnon stuff. And he produced a video of himself sexually abusing an infant. Where's the Fox freak out on this? Crickets. It's nowhere. They're too busy scaring people that kids are using litter boxes in school, which is an absolute lie. But this is video evidence of MAGA doing diabolical, fucked up shit with kids. We have a Christian mega MAGA pastor named Daniel Merrick. He has pled guilty to possessing nearly 700 child sex abuse images. And in his online profile, he identifies as #mega MAGA and has a link to the Bible and all sorts of stuff. So again, he has pled guilty. Fox News is wondering what Abrego Garcia's tattoos mean. But these guys, these sex offenders, got due process. A MAGA border protection officer, Scott Rocky, has been arrested for hoarding over 4,000 images of children between the ages of 4 and 10 being sexually abused. This man is MAGA. He promotes MAGA stuff on his social media and has images of kids between the ages of 4 and 10 getting sexually abused. And MAGA has an angry white man problem that does a lot of evil shit. And it's not spoken about because, again, they believe that white people can do whatever they want with impunity, as evidenced by electing a man who was found guilty of sexual abuse in a court of law. This is Cody McCollum, a white supremacist gang member and repeat violent offender who repeatedly raped a child. The conservatives, will never hear this man's name. Fox News won't mention him. Trump won't mention him. Trump officials won't do tough on crime photo ops in front of his prison cell. And he certainly won't be shipped to El Salvador for the simple fact that he's white and his ideology aligns with the Trump regime. So I just want to remind everybody that a 30-year-old gay makeup artist from Venezuela was shipped to a concentration camp in El Salvador. And all of these MAGA people do this tough talk. We're here to save children. We're worried about these sex offenders. They don't worry about it when it's inside their own house. Okay, the next one. We have a Christian chaplain trained at Republican activist Jerry Falwell's Liberty University, Douglas Cotta, has been sentenced to a 6 months in prison for possession of sex abuse content featuring preschool-aged children.
Bruh, let me pose the question to you in this manner, because some of that stuff is just, it's so horrible. It's for me, it's kind of like, why have the narrative in society been pushed that the worst criminals in America are Black people? But yet when we talk about the things that create criminals, usually a lack of education and being in poverty, they always want to quickly run and say that's not the problem or that's not an issue. And we shouldn't use that as the crutch for problems. But when we see shit like this, like diabolical shit like this from these white guys, it gets buried. And then when they do get quote unquote justice, TJ, it's 6 months. That last guy is getting 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think I said this to you the last time we talked. What bugs me is how white collar crime can destroy a family more than someone just shooting you in the face, because that can just harm that one person. Bernie Madoff destroyed families and generations of families with the money he stole during his white collar crime shit. And usually when you get popped with white collar crime, it's usually you pay a fine, you may go to jail for 1 or 2 years, but when you get out, you can go to the trust fund you put in the Cayman Islands. So I said all that to say to you, TJ, please talk about any one of these bums you want to talk about, but what is it going to take to shift the narrative that the majority of heinous crimes aren't just done by Black people? You've got a lot of these white projectors doing the crime, but telling somebody else it's somebody else's fault.
Yeah, it is kind of unfortunate. And a lot of it comes down to crime and punishment and their proximity to power, I would say, is the way to put it. And that the higher you are on the social economic status, not necessarily you as an individual, but your likelihood from being in a certain group. And this is something that we mentioned, that when people talk about systemic racism and how there are certain laws and rules and regulations these days, and honestly, in the past 60 years or so, a lot of the way society is built to punish Black people, whether purposefully or not, doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't. Like, it just happens. It just is that way. And so when you tell people that, well, there's a lot of rules that are, laws that are racist or whatever, they will respond with, well, can you point me to a specific law that says punish Black people this way, punish white people this way? No, that's not what we mean. And an easy example that a lot of people know, was the I don't know how it is now, but the discrepancy between the punishments of crack cocaine and powder cocaine. And one of those was more likely to be used by white people. One was more likely to be used by Black people. The one more likely to be used by Black people had a much heavier sentence, although it was just cut down cocaine. It was like a weaker substance, but that was the street crime. Yeah, that was the street crime, and that was going to be punished a lot. Not only is the street crime punished at a higher degree, you're also more likely to be checked at all. That I guarantee you, there are plenty of brokers on Wall Street, right now. You could stop half of them and you would find cocaine. They are never going to get stopped. It's never going to happen. Stop and frisk does not apply to a certain class of people. That class of people is more likely to be white. But unfortunately, this stuff is it takes some thought to realize this and get to this level. And a lot of people don't put that much thought into it. And yeah, the 6 months for the possession of like child sex abuse material, that was shockingly low. I was kind of surprised to hear that. But I agree with what you said in the beginning. And this is actually what I was going to say when I picked this topic here, that yeah, these folks they attack mostly the queer community. They love attacking the queer community and say that these people are threats to our children. They're going to be predators and everything.
Right.
Although I can't think of many cases where a drag queen sexually assaulted a child. I can think of dozens where there were pastors or something. That happens. Like, the Catholic Church had a rather large scandal about this just a little while ago. But you don't see these people protesting the Catholic Church. Like an actual organization with billions of dollars that's 2,000 years old, that went out of its way to cover and abscond and deny child sex abuse that was actually happening. I see very few protests from these folks when it comes to those people. And it's also, last thing I want to add there, it's a lot of these folks fit into the methinks thou dost protest too much. If you ever run across anyone who cannot stop telling you how much they hate pedophiles, that person is suspicious to me, because I can't think of a group of people who are hated more than pedophiles. Like, you don't have to convince anyone that these folks are bad, that these folks are dangerous to society. So if you're going out of your way to tell me, oh, I really, really can't stand these child predators, I'm like, all right, I would have assumed that, but you telling me that makes me kind of suspect there's something going on here. Those are my thoughts on that.
And that's no different from a lot of these MAGA guys protesting how much they hate the LGBT community and gay people, because they are secretly gay themselves. They secretly go to bed wanting to know what it would feel like to have something rammed in their butt, what it would feel like to be on their knees sucking a penis. But for whatever the reason, they want to rail and say, no, I don't want it. But TJ, when you take a look at these guys physically, look at these buffoons. Look. I mean, if you were to create Walking Dead porn zombie movie, these motherfuckers would be in it. Just look at this, especially this one. If this dude don't look creepy as hell, I mean, just if I see this face anywhere near my daughter, it's getting punched. I just had to do whatever fine I got to pay. I'm gonna have to do it. To me, TJ, this was just a reminder of anytime you hear someone, as you said, trying to profess their love of God or country or whatever it might be, look at them with a side eye. This is what my grandma said. The brighter the picture, the darker the negative. And when you look at these guys, especially this, here's one, he was some kind of pastor. How the hell are you going to call yourself mega MAGA pastor?
Jesus.
You know good and damn well what the MAGA movement is doing has nothing to do with religion. But there is not a single real deal religion that would do anything the MAGA movement is doing. And this is the type of stuff that scares me. This is a border protection agent. This is what really scares me. When you've got people like him and state troopers, the first guy that was in the video was a state trooper, 24-year-old state trooper. Imagine how many people he's profiled and pulled over. Imagine that. Imagine that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, just know that think deeper than this narrative that all the horrible crimes are done by Black people. That is very limited thinking. Very, very limited thinking. Think about what MAGA is doing, oftentimes by showing you this fire going on over here. You're paying attention to that while they are behind your back, sticking their penis in every hole and every orifice amongst every wall in America while you busy watching this. Crime goes to anybody. And oftentimes I would dare say that they do it more than us because of what TJ said. Their proximity to power allows them to, when they break a crime, usually get away with it. And then when they are convicted, their punishment is not as harsh as it is for those people who are not that close to power or have the money. And when TJ mentioned about the crack cocaine epidemic, that was a Ronald Reagan thing. The war on crack, which he said, the war on New York Black people. Because as TJ said, cocaine has been the drug of white people, especially stockbrokers and folks like that, forever, and still is to this day, to be honest with you. And then another drug, if they really wanted to do something, they really was about the safety and the sanctity of humans. You could go to any gym right now, roll up on any gym and see a dude who's 3 times my size, and I'm pretty big, and figure out who's pushing them their drugs. Every bodybuilding show in America could be zeroed out if they really was about doing the work of what's supposed to be safe to help people. Because every guy that you see running around here who's bigger than Zeus from Marvel is on drugs, illegal drugs. And they could shut that shit down tomorrow if they wanted to, but they don't. Because the majority of the people that take that shit is white guys. And even white guys who are policemen and some people who are in the military are using that shit to the tooth and nail, and they know it and they don't do anything about it. So folks, when you hear projection, just know that that's probably what the individual is doing themselves.
Yes. I like to bring up the war on drugs issue whenever I'm once again, Lamont, Lamont's, it's funny talking about this stuff because I already know he's heard this 1,000 times and it's frustrating to say it out loud, but it's important. And that whenever conservatives can no longer come out and say black society, like black people in general, are struggling, financially and economically and everything, because they're genetically inferior. They can't say that out loud, although there are a lot of them a lot more are saying it now, but in polite society, they can't say that. So what they will do is they will pivot to, well, black culture is worse, or black culture is the problem, that they are. It's funny because this is actually one of the rare occasions when their language actually hasn't updated with society, because you'll still hear them saying it's gangster rap that's making black people commit these crimes. It's like, man, rap hasn't been gangster in like 30 years. Okay. It is no longer the same thing that it was back then. Most hip hop songs now are just about partying. Basically, you're not, the days of Eazy-E are long gone. Okay. People aren't talking about that stuff generally anymore, but even that's the case, they will pivot to the fact that, well, black people just behave worse because their culture is worse. And of course, you dig down far enough, that stops making sense, because, well, why is that the case? I mean, black people, we speak the same language, we have the same religion, the same country. Why did the culture diverge so much? Was it so? But they like to point out the high percentage of black families that don't have two parents. And they'll say that according to the stats, if you're raised by one parent, generally a single mom, your odds of being in poverty are a lot higher. Your odds of being arrested are a lot higher. Your odds of pretty much everything negative in life, go significantly higher. Now, that is true. Like that is true. Like, a lot of these things that make so pernicious that they start with something that's true and then spider web out into, honestly, just nonsense.
That's my point. That's it. That's my point. That's my point.
And that they immediately say that, well, here's the problem. You got these black men that are just knocking up these women and disappearing, and they're not being responsible. One thing I never hear brought up about this is the war on drugs. I never hear this mentioned, that this war on drugs, that a lot of even libertarians or conservatives will say, all right, the way we handled the war on drugs in the 70s and 80s and 90s, that was probably pretty bad. Like, maybe we should have done. Well, that's good to know, because you locked up millions of black men during those days who, guess what? Now they're not employable. They're certainly not employed while they're in prison, and they're not there for their family. So if you want to look at one of the major contributors to these fatherless homes you say you care so much about, how about some prison reform? How about understanding the damage caused by the war on drugs, when millions of black men, prime of their lives, taken away from their homes, their families, and their communities, and how that had a damaging effect on the future generations? I don't hear anything about that. How about you?
Never. Never, because that would mean you're actually thinking about a solution to the problem that works, and they're not thinking about a solution to the problem. They're thinking about how they can continue to stoke the problem for their own prosperity and professional power. That's what they're thinking, and that's the problem here. And not only that, but then you're also getting into this other area where, even though most of what you said pertains to the black family, there's a shred of that in there that's a little religious, TJ. There's a little religious about this head of the household, the man missing, that they want white women to hear and scare them into thinking, you better not lose that white guy that's the head of your household. Then you'll be looking like these poor black women who can't get their children done and raised properly. And I'll just have to say this. Because of that statistic, we've had a whole lot of black women who've had to step up to the plate, be mommy and daddy, and have raised a whole lot of successful young men and women. I'm one of them. And the majority of the women that are able to prosper and go through the barrier of not having that other person in the house typically are able to raise great human beings. But we put on Front Street the worst of the numbers, and white people use that to, like I said, embolden and buffer their points of, see what happens when there's no dad in the house, these damn heathens, that woman can't take care of them. And also to scare the white women into thinking that you need to give up any thought of thinking you can be a head of a household to the man. And like I said, TJ, that goes back to a little bit of indoctrination from religion.
Yeah. It's also a they make a correlation causation error here a lot, and they will say that if you look at these stats, when you have a single mom and no dad and they raise kids, that statistically the kids don't do as well as as a home with a mother and a father. And they say, so the problem is single women raising kids, they can't do it. That's not actually true. Like, it's not. That
Mm-mm.
if you actually look at it and cut out variables and everything, it's money. That's what it comes down to. That
Right.
if you have a single
Exactly.
mom who is a millionaire, those kids will be fine, folks. Those kids are going to be fine. Guarantee
Perfect.
you. Like, it will not matter at
Mhm.
all that there's no dad in the household if that single mom has $1 million, which now, granted, most single moms won't have that, but that shows you it's not actually the single mom that's the problem. It's the access to funds to feed and clothe and shelter the kids, get them involved in the community, being raised in a community that has activities for the kids, being able to afford childcare, all the stuff that money can buy. Money can buy you pretty much this, all the success that you need, but they divert it away and say women are bad, they're irresponsible. That's the problem here. That's what we got to worry about, specifically Black women. And I point this out too, that when is the last time you have ever heard conservatives say anything positive about Black women? When's the last time? Like, can you think of any example other than when it's like Candace Owens, spout out, or other than like those cases or whatever, talking about your average Black woman at all? Have you ever heard them say anything kind about them? It doesn't happen. So yeah, you can tell what their motivations are.